Hello. Welcome to tonight's bedtime story from Porter Square Books. I'm Shana. I'll be reading your story, and I hope you're all going to enjoy it. It's actually, sneak peek, my staff pick for May, for next month, so I hope you'll enjoy it. It's Sal and Gabi Break the Universe, which is by, I think Carlos Hernandez? Yes, that's who it is, Carlos Hernandez. Really fantastic book, and I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I did. Anyway, there's all sorts of bad advice out there about how to deal with bullies. Ignore them, stand up to them, tell a teacher, tell a parent, tell your dentist while he's sticking your teeth back into your face. The real way to deal with bullies is to stick a raw chicken in their locker. I had my showdown with Yasmani Robles just 3 days after I started my new life at Coleco Academy of the Arts, a magnet school in the middle of Miami. To get in, you have to have good grades and pass an interview and either submit a portfolio for painting or writing or audition for theater or music. You'd think all the effort someone has to go through to get into Coleco would have kept out bullies, but I guess not. I guess there are just too many of them in the world. If your school only allowed in kids who'd never pick on anyone, you'd have an empty school. Whatever. It's not like I hadn't learned how to handle bullies back in Connecticut. On Wednesday, between 4th and 5th period, I went to the lockers, along with 500,000 other kids. I stowed my history books and grabbed math so I could do my homework during lunch, then opened my bag of magic tricks and put on my gotcha stamp ring. We would be doing introductions in 8th period theater class, and I thought I could use it to demonstrate some sleight of hand. Magic is kind of my thing. I had a minute before I needed to go, so I took out my diabetes bag and fished out my glucose meter. I thought I'd be all right until lunch, but I'd started to feel spacey and dreamy at the end of my last class. Blood sugar levels might be falling. Best to check in now. As I rummaged, I noticed the tall kid next to me struggling to get his locker open. He was as Cuban as they come, brown, built like a track and field champ, with a haircut so short you could see the bumpy skin of his scalp beneath what was left of his tiny curls. He'd wrestled with his combination lock yesterday, too, and never figured it out, so he'd had to carry a full backpack of books to his next class. I'd had trouble with my lock on the first day, until I'd figured out that you have to squeeze it as you turn the dial. And I'm a nice guy, so I said to him, "Hey, man, my lock sucks too. The trick is to squeeze the top while—" That's all I got out before he punched his locker. The whole hallway grew a little quieter. Yasmani, I learned his name later, but why keep you in suspense? Slowly turned to look at me. He scanned me up and down, doing some tough guy calculations to figure out if he could take me. Apparently, he thought he could, because he stepped up to me fast and ferocious, chest out, arms wide. He'd been in a lot of fight, judging from his flat as a shamrock nose. "You just come back from safari, white boy?" he asked. "I mean, if you even are a boy." Let's just take a second to break down this insult. The safari crack was because I had on canvas cargo pants and a cargo vest, each with 4 pockets brimming with gadgets and tricks of the trade. Pretty much all the clothes I own have tons of pockets. I'm ready to perform at any time. You never know when the world is going to need a little magic. The white boy crack was because, I guess, to him I looked white. Back when I lived in Connecticut, people were telling me to go back to Browntown all the time. But I was in Miami now. New place, new rules about skin color. And the, if you are a boy, I kept my hair pretty long. It gave me a place to hide stuff in the middle of a trick. And to this caveman's mind, calling someone a girl was an insult. Whatever, I tried the My Little Pony approach to handling bullies. "Sorry, just trying to help," and I started to walk away. He body-blocked me. "You wanted to help me? Why would a sandwich like you think I'd ever need your help?" Now I looked him in the eye. "Your locker's still locked, isn't it?" I probably shouldn't have said anything, but he called me a sandwich. Some insults you can't let slide. In response, he did what bullies do. He slapped my diabetes bag out of my hands. It hit the ground with a glassy crunch. My stomach crunched right along with it. That pack contained my insulin, my syringes, my blood glucose meter, my sharps disposal container for used needles, my Band-Aids, and a fun-sized bag of Skittles. If he broke something important in that pack, I could be in real trouble. I knelt down to pick it up, my hands shaking as they reached for the bag. I tried to relax. I closed my eyes, breathed slowly, and remembered what Poppy said to me after Mommy died. Fear is your body trying to tell your brain what to do, but the brain is the king of the body. It calls the shots. I opened my eyes slowly, the way the good guys in movies do when they've just figured out how to beat the villain. I noticed that the bright young scholars of Coleco Academy of the Arts had formed a ring around Yasmani and me. This crowd didn't seem as bloodthirsty as the ones in my last school had been. In Connecticut, kids hooted like in the Planet of the Apes whenever a fight was about to start, jumping up and down and beating on each other in anticipation, someone getting wedgied back to the Stone Age. But these kids looked kind of grim and quiet, like this was some boring school assembly they had to attend. Well, from my perspective, it didn't really matter whether they were enjoying themselves or not. They had me surrounded just the same. I was trapped. Wait, no, that's an excuse, and I don't lie to myself. I could have pushed my way out of there if I wanted. But now all eyes were on me. I had an audience, and I am a showman. Yasmani stretched his fingers wide before he made two fists. Time to die, little man. Stand up. I stood all right, got right in his face. Time to die? I asked. Time to die, he repeated. Like the dead chicken in your locker? I asked. What? See, that's the real secret of dealing with bullies. Change the game. You thought we were going to fist fight, Mr. Tough Guy, but, surprise, suddenly we're talking about murdered poultry. The dead chicken in your locker, I said, explaining it to the crowd. That's the real reason you didn't want to open it. You didn't want anybody to see your dead chicken, so they wouldn't know you keep dead chickens in your locker. Because, I said, turning to face Yasmani again, what kind of weirdo keeps dead chickens in his locker? Stop saying dead chicken! Everybody laughed. That probably would have sent Yasmani into a berserker rage if some girl hadn't shrieked, Blood! She was pointing at Yasmani's locker. What? Yasmani asked it again. He and everybody else looked at his locker. And yeah, there was watery pink blood leaking from it, the kind you find at the bottom of styrofoam meat packages. Not a lot, but enough to drip from the bottom of the locker door and pool on the floor. And it only takes a tiny bit of blood to freak people all the way out. Not me, though. I mean, I didn't know Sangre de Polo was going to come dripping out of his locker, but it wasn't exactly a surprise, either. I could work with it. Open it, I said to Yasmani. Unless you're too chicken. If he hadn't been completely bewildered by what was happening, he would have gorilla rushed me for sure. Instead, he walked over to his locker and tried to undo the lock. 2, 4, 7 yanks on it, each angrier than the last. Then he punched his locker door again and said, I can't open the stupid thing. I can't keep trying, but I can't. Here, let me. He took a step back to let me through, but not without asking, What? How do you know my combo? His combo was still taped to the back of the lock. About as sharp as a bowling ball, this Yasmani. I looked at him over my shoulder with spooky eyes, and I replied, Fool! I am a magician! I can read your mind. Then I spun the dial with fast fingers, clockwise, then counterclockwise, then clockwise again. I tugged the lock open dramatically, and with a flourish, removed it. You want the honors? I asked him, stepping aside with a gracious magician's bow. Yasmani, bro had gone full autopilot by now, stepped forward and opened the locker door. Every kid behind him on tiptoe, watching, waiting. A whole raw chicken, like the kind you get at the grocery store, with bumpy yellow skin and no head, flipped out of his locker, landed on its chicken butt, and went splat. Kids scattered, screaming. Adults would be here any second. Yasmani did a 180 and looked around wildly. He didn't have eyes anymore, just fear. "I didn't put no dead chicken in my locker," he yelled. "You gotta believe me." "I believe you," I said. Of course I did. It was I who had put it in there, after all. Abracadabra, chicken plucker. "Salvador Vidon, how long have you been attending my school?" asked Principal Torres. I'd only been at Culeco for a few days, but I already knew 3 things about her. 1. She was a big woman. 2. She was a smart woman. 3. Most importantly, she was a principal. That meant she had 0 tolerance for caca-seca. Caca-seca is the word Miami talk show hosts use instead of BS. It literally means dry poop, but really it means, dude, your poop is so played out, don't try to play me with your played out poop. 3 days, I replied to Principal Torres with exactly 0 caca-secas in my voice. 3 days, she repeated, letting her gaze drift around the room. Yasmani and I were sitting in tiny little plastic chairs in front of her desk, both of us doing our best not to move. Maybe then Principal Torres wouldn't see us. You know, like cavemen hiding from T-Rexes. No dice. Principal Torres' glasses suddenly caught the light and locked on me like prison searchlights. "And how many times have I seen you in my office, Mr. Vidon?" I paused before answering. The first time was on day 1, because my doctor had told me to inform my principal about my diabetes and the special equipment I needed to manage it, like needles, because if you bring needles to school, everyone assumes you're a drug addict. The second time, yesterday, Mr. Linot, my PE teacher, had sent me to her office for eating candy. But what was I supposed to do? Let myself pass out in the middle of the obstacle course? Principal Torres had said she would let Coach Linot know I had special permission to pop the occasional Skittle. And this time it was because of Yasmani. None of this was my fault. But I didn't say any of that. Principal Torres, I already knew, didn't like excuses. So I kept my face neutral and said, "You have seen me 3 times. Do you think I see every child who attends the school once a day, every day of the school year? No." "That is exactly correct," she said. Her smile could wilt flowers. "So why do you think I've had the great pleasure of enjoying your pleasant company in my office every day of the school year so far?" I thought for a moment. Actually, I just made a face like I was thinking, for the sake of the performance. Then, "Because the students and faculty of Culeco have a lot to learn about making the school safe for diabetics." She blinked and kept blinking for a few seconds. "Huh," she said, sitting forward in her chair. "You know, I was all ready to tear into both of you, but honestly, Sal, you may be right. Culeco's still pretty new. We only opened 5 years ago, and we've been growing and changing the whole time." She shook her head to help her get back to her point. "We've never had a student with type 1 diabetes before. I'm going to have to instruct my whole staff on how to meet your needs. The students, too. Or I'll tell my science teachers to include a lesson or 2 on diabetes. We will do better, Mr. Vidon, I promise. And I apologize." One of the quickest ways you can tell if an adult is quality people is if they'll apologize to a kid when they're wrong. Principal Torres was someone I could work with. "Thank you," I said. She nodded before turning her searchlights on Yasmani. Not a hair moved, by the way. It was like her hairdo was made of Legos. "I see I am going to have to make examples of a few people who don't know how to create a welcoming learning environment. Maybe then the school will get it, through its thick collective head, that bullying will not be tolerated under any circumstances." Man, Principal Torres wasn't even talking to me, but she made my guts flutter just the same. "What did I tell you about at the end of last year?" she said, parting her lips but not her teeth. This was usually the point in the conversation where the bully starts denying everything, blaming the victim, changing the subject, etc. I was ready for this. I'd made 2 bullies cry in front of principals at my last school just by calmly sticking to the facts and being polite. Adults really like polite kids. But Yasmani didn't behave like other bullies I'd known. He looked at his shoes. "I'm having a bad day," he told his ratty high tops. A spattering of chicken blood decorated his right shoe's toe. "No, said Principal Torres. You were having a bad day. Now you're having the worst day of your young life, because now I have to expel you." "Well, what?" "Wait," I interjected. "It wasn't that big a deal, Principal Torres. You shouldn't get expelled just for knocking my med bag out of my hand." She pushed her huge glasses up her face. "Unfortunately, Mr. Robles has a history at this school. Since the moment he got here, I have been bending over backwards to try and give him a proper education. Do you remember, Mr. Robles, how I helped you to complete the paperwork last year so that you could attend this very special magnet school?" Yasmani hunched over even more. "Yes." "Do you remember at the end of last year, after all the fights you got into and the problems you caused me, the little heart-to-heart we had right here in this office?" "Yes." "And what did I tell you then, Mr. Robles?" "That I was on probation." "That you were on probation. One more altercation with another student and it would be adios." She pronounced adios like an American, with 3 syllables. I wondered for a moment if she was a Latina who didn't know Spanish, but she cured me of that idea with her next sentence. "Y si no tienes ninguna defensa para ofrecer, te digo chao pesacao. Ahora mismo." I do not speak Spanish. Me, the reader, not the character. Apologies for that. My own Spanish is pretty okay, though I hadn't gotten to practice it much since Mommy died. Chao pescao basically means "see you later, alligator," and defensa means defense. She was asking Yasmani if he had anything to say in his defense, or it would be bye-bye Yasmani. And I mean, I clearly wasn't the first kid he'd bullied. Chacho was in big trouble. "Yes," he said. He looked at the door and back to Principal Torres, then the door, then Torres. "I will have a defense in a minute." Principal Torres cocked her head. She almost laughed, but inhaled instead. "In a minute? Mr. Robles, the time is now. Speak now, or forever hold your peace." He didn't look up or raise his voice or anything. He just said, "I need a second, Principal Torres. My lawyer is coming." Now she did laugh. "Your lawyer?" Her office door opened. In walked a very recognizable 7th grader, bringing in her own chair from the hallway and wearing a big smile on her face. I knew her, even though I'd only been at the school for a few days. It was Gabi Real, student council president, editor of the school newspaper, and, apparently, Yasmani's lawyer. "I came as fast as I could," she said. "So, what'd I miss?" Gabi put her chair next to mine and sat down. Not next to her client, as you might think she would. She offered her hand for a proper business-like shake. "Hi there, my name is Gabrielle Real, and I am your student council president, duly elected at the end of last year to serve all my fellow students. I want you to know that even though right now I am serving as Yasmani's counsel, this in no way means I have anything against you. I am your advocate too. And when you need representation someday, you will see how well I defend you from miscarriages of justice. What's your name?" I just kind of blinked back at Gabi, trying to take her in. It is a scientific fact that not all your body parts grow at the same rate, which may explain why Gabi's smile made up 3/4 of her lower face. I mean, she had a mouth like her mama was a shark and her daddy was shark food. It probably also looked bigger because Gabi was short. Trust me, I don't mean that as a burn. I'm short, too. I'm just saying that 3 raccoons in a trench coat would be taller than she was. My papi would call her mulata, but to me her skin was the color of the Pinewood Derby race car I made in shop class last year, after I'd brushed on 2 layers of stain. She had poofy black hair that she'd tried to control with Shaolin monk barrettes. I'd never seen barrettes that looked like Shaolin monks before. They were fighting each other all over her head, and kind of made me want to wear barrettes. She wore jeans, running shoes, and a t-shirt that said, "Well-behaved women seldom make history. Laurel Thatcher Ulrich." Every fingernail on the hand she held out to me was painted a different color. Sometimes the most honest response is the best. I shook her hand and said, "It's nice to meet you. My name is Sal Vidon. You seem like someone I can work with." Gabi smiled, but she side-eyed me as we shook hands. I don't think she understood what I meant. Fine with me. As a magician, that's exactly how I want people to react to me. "Ahem," said Principal Torres. Gabi let go of my hand so she could get up and shake hands with Principal Torres. I am so sorry, Principal Torres. I didn't mean to waste your time. I'm sorry for being late. Not sure how you could be late since I didn't even know you were coming. Principal Torres had the brutal timing of an insult comedienne, or a middle school principal. You didn't know? Gabi looked at Yasmani. You didn't tell her I was coming? Yes, I did, said Yasmani. Principal Torres shook her head. You said your lawyer was coming, Yasmani, and while it's true that one day Gabi will graduate at the top of her law class, that won't be for a few years yet. Gabi shook her head exactly the way Principal Torres had. I don't understand why you make things so hard for yourself, Yasmani. When you texted me, I told you to tell Principal Torres I was coming. She turned back to Principal Torres. You must think I just barged into your office uninvited. I am so sorry. It's okay, Miss Real. Frankly, I'm glad you're here. I'm about 2 seconds away from having to expel Mr. Robles. She talked over Gabi, who had started to interrupt her. But I would love to be convinced that there's some way he can be allowed to stay. So convince me. Gabi straightened up, squinting her eyes, and nodded, and all the Shaolin monks in her hair nodded along. I will, Principal Torres. I am here to present vital evidence on the incident in question. Principal Torres settled into her chair for a good listen. What do you know, Gabi? I have gathered testimony from 8 students, Your Honor. Principal Torres will do nicely, thank you. Oh, right, Principal Torres. I have 8 witnesses willing to testify under oath. No one has to testify under oath. This isn't a trial. Okay, ahem, said Gabi, clearing her throat. Clearly, she'd seen one too many Law and Order reruns. I almost laughed, but swallowed it. Gabi collected herself and continued. These witnesses swear that Yasmani hasn't been able to open his locker since the first day of school, which means Yasmani couldn't have put a chicken in there, even if he'd wanted to. In fact, the only person who has opened that lock so far this year is Salvador Vidon. Oh, right. Principal Torres turned her searchlight glasses back on me. The health code violation and salmonella outbreak waiting to happen. We haven't gotten to that part yet, have we? Sal, let's take a small detour from Yasmani's bullying, which will not be tolerated under any circumstances, and talk to our number 1 suspect. Now would be a very good time to fess up, Mr. Vidon. Did you put a raw chicken in Yasmani's locker? I felt my face go hot. The conversation had been going so well for me before Gabi showed up, but now she'd managed to redirect Principal Torres' wrath toward me, and I hate it when wrath is directed toward me. This would not do. That girl definitely needed to be managed. Fine. It was nothing a little more magic couldn't handle. I sat back in my chair, closed my eyes, and relaxed. And that will have to be it for tonight. If you want to read more of Sal and Gabi, had a little glitch, but we're done anyway, so I guess good timing. If you want to read more of Sal and Gabi Break the Universe by Carlos Hernandez, check out portersquarebooks.com. It is actually coming out in paperback right in about a week, I guess. May 5th, I think, is the official date. And it's going to be my staff pick, so 20% off as well. But you do have to wait till May for that one. You can also just get it right now. And yeah, it continues to be extremely fun, extremely entertaining. And I hope you all have a great night and keep on joining us for these bedtime stories. All right. See you later. Thanks for listening. And yeah, good night.